here on out on every edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, and with the first guest being a guy that knows a lot about agriculture, very well knowledge in that field. Thought I'd go with a farm field covered in snow since it is the wintertime. Thought it was only fitting. I know this first guest loves it. I was talking to him before the show about it, and it's Harry Siemens, the guest here on the Farm Report, as always, joining the show on these Wednesday morning editions of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Harry, great to have you on the show this morning. How are you doing on this Wednesday morning, man?
As I told another person just about an hour ago, if I was any better, I couldn't stand it. So, so I'm doing good. You know what? Right off the bat, I just want to. It's a positive as far as Vancouver Shipping is concerned. On Facebook, just about a half hour ago, I was texting with a trucker, Victor Sawatsky, and he was on his way to Vancouver, and I says, "Hey, how do you get to Vancouver by a truck?" And he gave me the route. And he was up to Kamloops and number 5, and then number this and number that, and then number 1 was open again, so he was going to go to Delta and then come right back to Manitoba. You know what? That's good news story. It's a start. We've been trying to figure out what exactly is happening as far as the railroads are concerned, but I understand there's some traffic as far as grain movement to the coast as well through railroads. But that's really, really slow at this point, and so is the truck. I mean, that's a long. He had to make quite a long turn or distance route rerouting that got him to Delta. But at the same time, he was happy. He's on his way. And then when you let me know how things are going once he gets there.
Yeah, and that's great that he gave you the route there, Harry, of how to get from Winnipeg to or Manitoba to Vancouver to that area. But talking about the update in British Columbia on the just the gruesome stories we were talking about last week about the animals drowning in the water. Have you heard anything more on that front about what's been happening after the fallout of that situation?
You know what? Not a lot. I mean, they had some additional rain, which is shut down the railways for the time being. It was just too dangerous. But talking to Vic, he drove up to Merritt, BC, or he's going to. So Merritt was one of those towns that was really underwater. And I've been through Merritt many, many times. So at this point, the big cleanup. That's all I can really say is that they're cleaning up. They're pumping water out of that lake that used to be a lake, which was drained in order to put Abbotsford and some of those places in there. And so, you know what? It's going to be a real challenge to get everything cleaned up back to some kind of a working order. But at least I understand they're on their way to doing that.
Talk about the update on Manitoba pork and how the PED virus is affecting Manitoba pork at this point. I know that's something you really want to hit on today on the show.
PED virus, it's a devastating virus for those pig barns that get it. And as I've talked before, Manitoba Pork had an update this week. It was kind of a town hall meeting about an hour long, and we saw some really good information. The key part I want to update on is that right now there are 21 facilities that have broken out in PED virus. That's well on the way. Like the last couple of years, we were fortunate. 20, at least last year. But we've been as high in 2019, I believe we were up to 88 facilities. And it takes its toll, number one, on the owner of that pig barn. I mean, he loses income at least 6 months, maybe up to a year, in order to clean out that place. They have to euthanize, the pigs, get everything out of there, clean it, wash it down, disinfect it to the point where it has to be clean. And so that's number one. But you know what? The toll that it's taking on hog workers, the people that work in those hog barns, it's not always the owner that works in the hog barn. they hire workers, and we have workers from, the Philippines. We have workers from Mexico. We have workers from different parts of the world, actually, and so just imagine you walk into a pig barn and you see some sniffles of weanlings, the little baby pigs, and you know that within 18 hours, either you will have euthanized them or they will have died vomiting and diarrhea,
Yeah.
and it's a horrible death. So there's the owner, there's the pig, and there's the person that works in the pig barn. And so, we I just my heart goes out to. I've sat across from a pig in the last go around, 2019, with a pig producer, Bob Kleinzoster, with the Springcrest Hutterite colony near Steinbach. I mean, they had an outbreak, and he just he just literally tears when he talks about it. And so it's a real struggle, and the financial uh, hardship for those individuals is really tough. So update, we've got 21, and the other big message, Dr. Tony Nickel with the Progressive Hog Group, he did about a 30 to 35 minute presentation. I know Tony well. He's a veterinarian, and he gave a presentation as to how they handle it in their particular hog group. And it's very detailed. You get almost to the point where you get frustrated with all the things that you have to do, because the virus travels in dust, the virus travels everywhere. In air, when the fans go, and if it's in the air, it comes in. And so it's a really challenging one. So hats off to the Manitoba Pork Council and the hog industry. I'm sure they'll get control of it, but in the meantime, we're going to see some losses.
Yeah, just such an unfortunate situation, a sad situation as well to see these animals dying from this disease, and just crazy how much detail goes into, preventing a virus like this to, not outbreak as much, as you said, the Manitoba Port Council talked about. But, talking about something else, Harry, the farm machinery prices, what are the prices looking like in terms of farm machinery at this point?
I'll touch on that right after that. I forgot one point. One of the other issues in the hog industry, and not only the hog industry, in the agricultural industry, is that according to the federal government council, the ag industry was across the board 40% short on laborers. There were 40% of the jobs went begging because there were not enough people to fill it. In the hog industry, that's 50%. Cam Dahl is the general manager of the Manitoba Pork Council, and he put out a news release on behalf of the industry saying we're begging for 50% of the jobs that are available, and the hog industry isn't, they pay pretty good, and so that's another real challenge that the agricultural industry has. Employees, they need workers. So I just wanted to add that is there. The farm machinery prices, I have a friend, his name is Greg Peterson, and everybody knows him as Machinery Pete. And he comes from Rochester, Minnesota. I had a chance to visit with Greg, and I'll call him Machinery Pete, back in 2012. We took a trip to Louisville, Kentucky. My wife and I were hosting a bus tour. He was a guest host. So we had a chance to spend about 4 or 5 days together on the bus and at the farm show where he was a speaker, and on the way back, of course. So I had a chance to visit with him. He looks at auctions. He looks at all kinds of things, has probably the best handle on what's happening in farm machinery. Right now, he says and that he's never seen it in about 20, 25 years of covering the farm machinery auctions. Never seen prices the way they are right now. There's a shortage of equipment, and if a farmer sees a tractor on an auction bill beforehand, and he wants that tractor, tractors are going at some places 60, 70, 80, sometimes a double the price than what they would have paid for a new one for that tractor new. But the new tractors today are so much more money that if they can find a good tractor that they figure will fit the bill, they'll pay extra money to get the used one instead of going far more higher priced for a new one. So I'll have more on that next week, but I just wanted to just highlight that right now the farm machinery prices are really strong. He said, the last thing he said to me, he says, Harry, if you want to leave a message with anybody, he says, if you have a piece of equipment that you want to get rid of, sell it because it's really a seller's market.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a market that sellers would want to invest in selling machinery, farm machinery for sure. And I love that nickname, Harry. Machinery Pete. That's a great one. That's a classic for sure. A gem drop by Harry Siemens on this week's edition of the Farm Report. But talk about seed trade and the issues with the fees right now. What's going on in that part of the industry?
Right now, we have the Canadian Seed Growers Association, which are the producers. They're the ones that produce the seed. My father was a seed grower. And what I mean by that, that's the seed that other farmers want to buy in order to get the best chance of getting a good crop. The days of taking your seed out of your bin and going and planting it are long gone. So now we have Seed Canada, which is an association of the researchers and so forth, and then you have the seed trade. All of a sudden, the fees went up for certain varieties, and so I talked this morning to Simon Ellis. He's Ellis Seed at Wawanesa, Manitoba, a young farmer who took over from his father not only the farm but the seed business. And he basically tells me that, right now, because of what's going on in costs and all those things, there are certain varieties like soybeans and certain other varieties where the fees in order to get those varieties to market, they're actually going up in some cases 50-60%. And people are saying, how come? Well, it's just costing so much more in order to get some of those varieties. And not only that, the amount of seed that they're selling in some cases has halved. And yet those fees are still the same to get that particular crop to market. So that's an issue that I think will resolve itself, but at the same time, they're continuing to work. We have the Canadian Seed Growers Association, the producers, and then we have the seed trade, the people that develop the seed and bring it to market. And so that's the issue involved there.
Yeah, and definitely going to get some updates on the seed trade and,
Yep.
and the fees at some point in the upcoming episodes of Rise and Shine Manitoba for sure, Harry. But, one other thing. You talked about a cattle support group yesterday. That's something you wanted to talk about. While we were texting, planning what we were going to talk about on today's show. You said you have an update on a cattle support group. What's the update?
On the cow program?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a program by the government, provincial government, that put out some money up to $250 per cow. So if you're getting rid of a cow, you would, if you were eligible, you could get a payment of $250. I checked with Randy Kachuk, who's a cow calf producer up at Sundown, Manitoba, which is up in the southeast, and he told me about how that, and yeah, he says when he looked at the program, it was good, but he wasn't quite sure yet. There weren't as many details out there as he would like to know. But in his case, because of a management decision, not because he doesn't have the finances, but because he doesn't have the feed and he didn't want to go out and pay for the extra feed, he cut his cow herd by 46% going into next year. He wants the winter. He wants to be able to be comfortable in order to feed the cows that he has, and he didn't want to pay exorbitant prices for feed. So for some of those cows that he got rid of, he might be eligible for $250 a cow in order to compensate him for having to get rid of it because there's not enough feed.
Wow, that's crazy for sure. Not enough fee got to compensate for it. Definitely an interesting update you gave us here on the show here today, giving me and all the viewers on the show here, Harry. But ending off with this, Siemens says the farming tip of the week for Harry Siemens on the farm report this week.
Today, I'm going with one that I use every day. 1986, I developed a motto: a positive mental attitude to encourage, to serve, and to inspire others will motivate me to do my best. And that's something we can get so hung up on the negative. And every morning we have a choice. Are we going to be positive or are we going to be negative? I choose every morning as best as I can. Even after I lost my spouse of 47 years, 3 years ago, I still worked at being a positive person to those people that I met. Why? Because it makes me positive and it helps me to do my best wherever I go.
Yeah, for sure. With everything that's going wrong right now in terms of just the floods in BC, the PED virus update you gave us on Manitoba Pork here in Manitoba, and many other things that just seem kind of negative right now. You're always a positive person on the show every single week, Harry, and it's always awesome to have you. Harry Siemens, farming tip of the week for farmers on Siemens Says. Harry Siemens joining this week's edition of the Farm Report on Rise and Shine Manitoba. Harry, until next Wednesday, man, we'll talk again soon.